That means you're extra, extraordinary.
Hello, friends. How we doing? Okay. What a day. Coffee ready. Hello, how are you doing? My name is Tom, the Shagsworth. Occasionally I do some streaming on YouTube. A lot of times on Twitter. Active voice on... sometimes I stream on Twitch. Active user on Twitter. All those things. And looking to find my place in the digital landscape. Because there's lots of stuff going on in the news. And I find a lot of what's happening pretty disturbing. And I guess in the last episode I talked about some things that that just continue to bother me because it's like taboo to talk about things, and you're not supposed to bring things up. There's no place in the world to talk about things that you want to talk about that you're unsure of, and that doesn't seem right. The world has given us Twitter, which gives this ever-expanding town hall of voices that are vying for attention. And, the idea of, someone speaks up and then someone doesn't like it, so they shout them down. But it's created this wave where people, they don't like that, and they gather all their friends, they dogpile on top of one another, and it's just not healthy for anyone because people have legitimate questions. And I think that's where a lot of the divide is happening right now. Is you have people who just want to ask the questions, who are like, I'm on board with certain things to an extent, but I just want to ask this question. They're basically told, no. You're asking a question? No. No. See, what you're doing is you're confused because you're racist and because it's these questions are rooted in some sort of supremacy, just by just because you were born a certain way. And I think the hard part is for someone like myself is I spent a decent amount of time in that cult of people, wondering, you're drinking the Kool-Aid rather, and then trying to figure out why. It's that age-old experiment where there's a few people in a room, they're aware of what needs to be done, and they bring in strangers to do an act, like randomly standing up in a room. And at first, the people in the room are, they look around, they're like, well, what's going on? Why are these people standing up? But after a while, they don't even question it anymore. They just continue to stand up with the people, and as time progresses, those people leave, the control leaves, and then eventually you have a room full of strangers who are doing things that they don't understand why they're doing them. And this is where I started to think, okay, now I'm just doing things because I've been told to do them. For a while, I asked the questions, why am I doing this? What is the point of it? Doesn't seem right. Black lives matter. Of course Black lives matter. But don't all lives matter? Doesn't every single life on the planet matter? Shouldn't we be preserving the human race? No. One over the other. But then, so that's the control. The control is someone saying to me that I am wrong. You are wrong for saying that all lives on this planet matter. It is time for these lives to matter. Okay? So I'm convinced. And finally, something big like the George Floyd murder happens, and we're shown a clip of something, and we're told this is what happened. This is what's going on. But upon further inspection, by looking into matters outside of the control, the mainstream narrative, right? So the control is now mainstream media because they're telling you what it is that you need to believe, and if you step outside of that, you're met with a mob to say you're wrong. That's not right. So I start to look into things, and I start to think, well, okay, this is this hour-long video of a man who's clearly under the influence of some sort of drugs is not as cut and dry as they make it out to be. Same thing with Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse defends himself against an attacking mob. He unfortunately kills 2 people and severely wounds a third. Awful. But it's not as cut and dry as CNN or MSNBC or any of those liberal outlets would have claimed, because again, upon looking at video of what was going on and also hearing eyewitness testimony from journalists who were on the ground right next to him, the story changes, right? But it changes for the people who keep the open mind. But because maybe certain information came from an outlet like the Daily Caller or some conservative outlet, it's an issue. This is my big problem, and this is where the red pill starts to dissolve, because I wonder, what the hell? Why does everyone seem to think that these events are so cut and dry and rooted in some sort of racism, but they don't stop to ask the questions first? Like, it would be really bad if that were the case. If it were the case that there's some sort of systemic, like, boogeyman racism out there, that would be a huge problem. But no one stops to think, like, well, maybe we should just look at it and ask questions. But the questions are also rooted in white supremacy, right? It is my privilege as a white person to be able to ask questions. No, I don't think so. Clyde Crow, welcome in, bro. How you doing? We're talking nonsense tonight. And for the people who watch this and for the people who check in and who are reading the news, don't stop that. Don't stop asking questions. You don't need to, people who are, when you meet someone with a question about something that's going on, family, friend, whoever, if you hold your ground in a easygoing, meaningful way, it is now on them to either act accordingly with decorum or not. And if they choose the latter, then it's done. You're not going to get anything out of them, because that's the battle that's happening, right? It's like emotional warfare that no one can win. There's no way to combat someone who's throwing just like visceral emotion at you, because they're not thinking clearly and rationally, and they don't want to have a conversation. And that's the problem. Which does bring me to my first little thing I want to comment on. On this podcast, I want these things, because there's little blips of news that happen throughout Twitter that I think people pick up on really quickly. They like it, retweet it, and they forget about it. But I've saved a couple of them, because there's things that I think that we'll hear today, but then tomorrow they're gone. Hence the name. Here today, gone tomorrow. So I hope that by going over these things that people get a new perspective on stuff that's happening out there and voices that are out there. And so the first one's this tweet I saw today. It was perfect, because what I do is I'm an instructor, and I teach kids personal and professional development to help prepare them for the real world. I work with I work with generally underprivileged kids, ones with really unstable home lives, come from poverty, homeless, crime, and not all, but a fair amount. We're a government-run program, and I try and offer them a chance to do better for themselves, because a lot of them don't know how to manage money at all. They don't know how to put a resume together. They don't know how to properly interview. They don't even know how to fill out a job application. Some of them can't even write properly, which is a bummer. No student of mine, whether he's 17, 18, 19, 20 or above, should be in that situation. So tweet here, as you can see, starting a business, $1,000, too much. Buy a new iPhone, same price, not a problem. Healthy groceries, $100, that's too much. Dinner and drinks, $100, no problem. Want to go out. And I don't know, Netflix for learning a new skill. This is something I talk to people about all the time, and I even very recently made a comment on a very popular YouTuber's tweet about how they couldn't afford to buy, or they couldn't afford rent every month. You're just paying rent till you die. And I thought, well, if you can afford to pay rent till you die, you should probably think about, you could afford to buy a house, or you should be thinking about buying a house. How's it going, brother? Thank you for coming in. Good to see you, pal. So this is one of those things, right? I see a tweet like that, and I think this is an individual pinning their own issues on the system. A system that they've milked for their own personal gain, their own success. Right? Someone complaining about capitalism, but is clearly benefiting from a capitalist society. Like, you're here in America making money by playing video games and reviewing them, and you're living the dream, and yet you're complaining about paying rent. It's like there's other decisions in your life that you can make that would get you out of it. It's called, the idea of self-sacrifice is totally lost on a generation that has never really had to fight for anything, and has been told that they can have whatever they want as long as they ask for it. And not to say that I haven't gone through this as well, but there's this fake boogeyman that's out there that everyone pretends is real. The system. I think the system in some ways does cause issues for people, and it does hold some people down, but I think by and large the system is created in a way that gives people the opportunity, the same way across the board. In this tweet here, I was just like, I need to share this and let people know that this stuff can be done. It just means you can't buy that new iPhone. No, you can't buy the brand new phone, because you could start a business with that money. The problem is people are like, well, I don't have $1,000. It's like, well, you didn't really have $1,000 to buy the iPhone. You've been paying it off over months. So this is where you need to sacrifice something for a few months to save $1,000 to start the business that you want to start. Stop watching 2 hours of Netflix tonight, and instead use that 2 hours to learn a skill. This isn't something that's done perfectly. Even the most successful people out there struggle from time to time when it comes to, planting their butt in a chair and getting busy. But the idea of practicing it, the idea of repetition, it's muscle memory. People don't go to the gym once a month, and expect to get big. No, they go multiple times a week. And they're working out different muscle groups at different times to see results. Now, if someone who's going to the gym for, if they're going for a couple months straight and, 3-4 days a week, and all of a sudden they take a week off, they're going to feel it, but they're also not going to lose they might feel it, but they're not going to lose a whole lot, because they're still practicing. Missing a day when you're still being consistent isn't the worst thing in the world, but you still should be practicing. This is important stuff that people nowadays are not learning. This is common sense. It's common sense to people who understand economics, who understand hard work, who understand real life, reality. Start your business right now. Don't buy the new phone. Who cares? Your phone will be fine. You could stretch an iPhone for 4 or 5 years until the hardware or the firmware updates just crash it, because it just can't handle it anymore. don't need to buy a new phone every 2 years or every year. It's absurd. It's absurd. Reminder, make sure everyone grabs their coffee right now, because if you're not drinking a coffee and staying awake, you're doing it wrong. This idea that, again, I put out there to a big YouTuber that they could own a house. Suddenly, it becomes an attack on them, which tells you something right away about, whether that be they understand that they're doing wrong and they're just, looking for a wow moment and gotcha and to dogpile me in some way. A couple of people spoke out in their defense. Their simps came out of the woodwork to tell me what was what. But the fact remains is that, there are things that you can give up in your life in order to acquire new skills, to acquire the money you need for a down payment on a house, and that also may mean that you can't live in LA proper, that you can't live in downtown Manhattan. But sacrificing for a period of time could mean that you could do that. Like, especially for someone in a privileged, I hate to use that word, but in a privileged profession or place in the world, economic standing. Like if we're just taking like the games industry for the example, right? Someone who reviews video games regularly, more than likely not spending too much of their personal money on technology, on games, so that expense is already gone, right? Like, maybe you can't buy that game. Maybe you just have to go to the office, and you have to go to the office to play your games, to review them, instead of cramming at the last minute. Again, people make personal sacrifices that suck in the moment, but in the long run, benefit them greatly. And a good friend in the chat just said, living in an RV to make my dream of a farm a reality. You can't just buy a house. Sometimes you got to sacrifice, downsize to something small, store your stuff for a little bit, save your money to do the things that you want to do. Common sense stuff that's not taught, because everything today is about instant gratification. Just get what you want right now and don't give a shit about anyone in the way. And then complain that the system somehow screwed you in the process. No, you screwed yourself. If there's anything I couldn't get, it's because I didn't take the time to save money for it. I didn't take the time to put money away, to have the thing I want. Eric July today, besides being hilarious and dunking on his competition and his live stream, decided to also tweet this out, which was just totally perfect, because there's this idea that somehow Georgia's revamping of their voter ID laws and infusion of money into the election system in certain districts and opening more polling places was somehow limiting people's ability to vote, which again is just preposterous. And the Democrats keep that big loser energy up with all the bitching and complaining about voter suppression. But again, the idea that you need IDs for so many different things in the world, and then suddenly it's it shouldn't be necessary, or it's somehow rooted in white supremacy that you need an ID to vote for your chosen candidate. Explain that one to me. It's just, I had someone try to bring this argument to me on Facebook. They tried saying, well, if you really look into it, voter laws, they're, requiring ID for minority communities is it's voter suppression. And I could not wrap my head around it. And of course, they dropped me a few like Vox articles and New York Times articles that somehow explain it. Nothing, of course, wouldn't dare post anything that may be from the right or the center. So again, these are parts of like, these are the things that I was digesting all of in 2020, and it was like just slowly dissolving that red pill, because I just thought like, well, what do you mean? Like, how is requiring an ID of someone suppressing? Like, it's just like everyone has one. I mean, like everyone, and there's actually plenty of man in the street videos that have gone up, like asking. I think Campus Reform was one of them, asking, do you have ID? Or like, they go to an inner city, so I want to say somewhere in New York City, and they ask, do you know where the DMV is? Do you have ID? Like, yeah, I got it right in my pocket. Yeah, the DMV is right down. Take the train, take the left. It's right there. Can't miss it. It's right by the whatever. But there's this idea from like white liberals, because that's who was talking to me on Facebook, that requiring an ID to vote for your representative in government is suppression. Because they somehow, the idea of like gerrymandering or redlining a district to shut off a certain amount of votes, and from what I understand has actually been done way more often from a Democrat controlled House than Republican. So like from what I've read, Republicans who have controlled the House, the Senate, and even the executive branch have not done it in the way that Democrats have in the past 50 years. So to that, I just say, go fuck yourself. Sorry. So, I mean, it's just like this goes, again, this speaks to the broader issue of asking questions to your fellow man. Asking questions of people, because we shouldn't just be taking things at face value. I think there's some things, again, I'm not gonna sit in my neurologist's office and tell him that he should just that I don't believe what he's saying. Like, I have no idea how the human brain really works. I have an idea how medication makes me feel, so I'll ask him questions based on that. Like, oh, I'm not feeling too good every time I take this medicine, so is there maybe we can try something different, an alternative? But like, these everyday social issues that we're met with, that we deal with like personally, like legitimate social issues, you don't need an expert to tell you about. I don't need anyone to tell me that. Like, to me, these new voter laws that are going into effect in Georgia, if anything, are giving more people a chance to go out and vote. People who are trying to stop that, like, those are the people causing real harm. When you're trying to stop, like, an expansion, like, infusing money into districts, into reducing wait times at polling places, so creating more polling places, like, that is the opposite of suppression. That's like progression. Like giving me, yes, I don't want to wait 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours in line to vote, or longer in some areas. No, I don't think it should happen at all. Do I want to give people the option of better votes? Like, if voting by mail is a thing, sure. I think there should be a way to regulate how that, there should be a way to make sure that whoever's doing that thing is that person. We're playing on emotions to keep people asleep. Yeah. Again, it goes back to that control group, right? It's a bunch of people sitting in a room. There's two people who know what's going on. That's the media. The mainstream media or the woke are the two people that are they're posturing. They're doing the thing. They're standing up every couple seconds, and the strangers in the room are like, "What are they doing? Why are they standing up all of a sudden?" But after a while, they don't even question it. They just stand up with them. Like, that's what's happened. The virtue signaling, you know, from the woke left, from the identitarian left, is what's keeping people asleep, because they're just like, yeah, that pisses me off. I don't want systemic racism, but I'm not going to ask why there is, or proof of such an awful thing. Men, you know, whether you're black, white, Asian, you know, male, female, the opportunities right now is the most that any group has ever had. But these like woke policies, you know, this idea that like Asians have to work harder to get into certain Ivy League schools is bullshit. That right there, that's your racism right there. There's too many smart Asians, so we're gonna make it harder for you to get in, and all the while make it easier for other groups to get in. No. Why? Why? Like, don't you want a successful track record? Like, is it just me? Is it just me that wants the best person for the job? Like, and and we have here from, you know, I didn't get to do this one, but when we switch over, United Airlines, the newest corporation to go woke. Our flight deck should reflect the diverse group of people on board our planes every day. That's why we plan for 50% of 5,000 pilots we train in the next decade to be women, people of color. Learn more, fly now. Yeah, no thanks. No thanks. And every single person who sees this, who's a woman or person of color, should laugh their ass off and tell these people to go fuck themselves. Because, and again, like, we're not hiring based on merit. We're not hiring based on how qualified you are to fly a plane 30,000 feet above the ground. No. We're not hiring the best person. We're just hiring someone who, as far as skin tone goes, is different. And again, forced equity has shown that has shown to have the reverse effect. So this will ultimately cause more of a divide. You're not, you know, men and women are not going to choose the same professions most often. And please don't get me wrong, women can absolutely fly a plane. Absolutely. But to say you're going to force this on your company, just what? Why? Why? Go woke, get broke. Like, I just don't see. Like, again, this is just putting a weird. It's putting a weird thing out there, and like, if I were a woman or a person of color, I'd be like, okay, so you're just gonna hire me because of some inalienable trait? Like, I have no control. Like, what's way more important to me is like intellectual diversity. That like there's a diversity of thought is a way better like measurement of diversity than skin tone. Can't control that. I can control like how like the information I'm taking in. And yeah, merits of character has become toxic to the weak. I don't want, you know, especially in this day and age. No one wants to work hard. But the thing is, there's so many hardworking people out there, and they're gonna get passed up because they don't fill a box that, again, they have zero control over. Zero control. United Airlines is going to pass up on brilliant people to fill positions for woke CRT garbage. Legitimate garbage. You want a diverse company? Hire people who think differently than you, not just look different than you. Imagine. No, it's not good enough for people. It's not good enough for people because I'm sure airlines are somehow rooted in white supremacy too. It's just the, like, it's just, is no one, like, again, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. What is, how is that your measurement? Like, we fought a civil war over this. We went through civil rights riots and protests, and a brilliant black Republican getting killed, and many other people getting killed for equal rights. And now we're regressing to the point where we're like, you know what? Segregation sounds really good. We're not going to call it that. We're going to reflect the diversity of our planes. We're not going to segregate the whites from the coloreds. No. We are going to diversify our pilots. This is like peak weirdo shit, guys. Peak fucking weirdo shit. And people are eating it up as if it's like, I mean, you look at some of the comments on here. I'm certain that United Airlines is capable of safely diversifying its pilot group. This is a worthwhile effort that will give minorities a chance at the excellent, rewarding career. This is not out of control wokeness. No. It's the right thing to do. Come on now. Sorry, I got sunburned the other day, and now my back is all itchy. You know, again, of course, we want people, like, I want everyone to have a job. Like, there's not a whole lot of people out there that are standing here saying, there's like a fringe group of people. There's like 500 like real white supremacists in the United States right now. Fuck those people. Like, but everyone else, like almost everyone else, you're talking, so 500 out of 330 million, like, want to like cancel people based on the color of their skin. Everyone else, every normal person who's not woke is just thinking like, I just want the right person in the job. I just want the most qualified person to be in that job. Especially when you're flying 30,000 feet in the air. I want the best person in the world doing that job. I absolutely, positively don't want someone there just because they check a box they had no control over to begin with. Sorry. Sorry. If that makes me racist, then whatever. I'll die on that hill. The most qualified person should always be in the job. Of course, I want a company to look diverse, of course. But it doesn't mean anything if the right people aren't there to do the job that needs to be done. Facts. Like, and I hate to quote him, but like, they don't care about your feelings. They don't care about how you feel about something. It just is. Especially in a job that carries thousands, millions of people, like a month, a year, a week. Like you don't want the second best person. Imagine if tomorrow, like, hospitals were like, you know what? It's clear that we need more people of color as brain surgeons. So from now on, we're just going to take, 70%, people of color, and the other, those other. Like, no. What I want to happen, and this is a crazy idea, I know. What I want to happen is I want something to change culturally with people who are, I guess, culturally bankrupt. I don't care what color they are. I want people to learn from an early age that you need to value your life, your skills, other people's life and skills, provide for your family, stick by your family. Crazy idea, I know this is nuts. There isn't a policy out there right now that will change what's going on. This is a generational issue that's going to take time. It's going to take time. But the activists out there, the quote-unquote activists out there, think that they can scream white supremacy, they can scream racism at the top of their lungs and somehow change the world around them. No. Work on yourself. Fix the problems locally with yourself. I say this all the time. I'm constantly working on myself. I'm not perfect. Do I want to celebrate Black excellence? Absolutely. That's one of the topics I want to put on here. Black excellence. Absolutely. Clarence Thomas, Thomas Sowell, Eric July, Gothics, Ruined Leon's a new one. These people, I start at the top, kind of, I'm working my way down. Like there's such a broad spectrum of people that have broken free of, whatever stereotype they've been put in. And it's such a beautiful thing. Well, people don't like them. They're not talked up because they don't fit the narrative that people of color are held under the boot of the white man, right? Like that's if all these people coming out now, white liberals especially, who are like, I'm so sorry, like I need to pay for my crimes. What? Shut up. But it's because, it's also because you have these, you have Hollywood eats it up too. They're the ones taking it and eating it up and throwing it back at people. And people are like, well, a celebrity said it, so it has to be true. Must be true. They know what they're talking about. No, it's okay to think for yourself. I don't have to agree with everything that a conservative says, or a liberal says, or a libertarian says. I can agree with certain things and then figure out the rest of my own. It's what's so beautiful about this country. I could speak up against the President Sleepy Joe Biden. I could say whatever I want about him and know that I'm not going to be taken away to the gulags. Just how it is. It's a beautiful place. It's, people watching, I appreciate people watching who will watch in the future. This stuff isn't going away anytime soon. There's too many companies out there that are pushing critical race theory, who are Senator Tim Scott, Tyrese, Charles Payne, Kanye, Charles Barkley. Yeah, dude, like all these guys. I thought Kanye was nuts for it, and he is to an extent. But he said some stuff that I thought I looked at him sideways for in the past, and now that I've kind of I've been red pilled, I look at him, I'm like, damn, the dude knows what he's talking about. He knows. Charles Barkley, same thing. He don't give a shit. This podcast, this show, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, is just a little baby of mine that I hope to grow and to talk about more things and to keep the conversation moving, because it's and a way to continue to connect with friends, because they're here. But this is important stuff, and people have to start asking questions. They need to start asking questions of your family and your friends, people who, if you don't agree with something, and this goes for people on the left trying to combat the right, like ask your conservative family members, like what is really going on, like what are they thinking, why do they support a certain person, and genuinely listen, because it's your family. It's your family. And you all should take care of yourselves. Take care of yourself first, because no one's coming to help. The government comes around every, over the past year has come through every, 6 months, and said, here's a check for you. Great. Takes care of a month for you. Great. Take care of yourself. Learn the hustle. Things probably aren't going back to normal the way they used to. It's been very evident. It's going to be a while. Learn how to adapt. The people who have learned to adapt and who are using their heads, they're making it right now. They don't give a shit about what the government's saying to them over and over again. They're just getting their work done. They're getting paid. They're making money. They're making content. Be that person. Today is the day, right now. You don't have to wait. Just start. Because your competition's not waiting. They're going to get it. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's it for episode 2 of Here Today, Gone Tomorrow. Back again next week.